There are other crypto media sites with headlines similar to the one from Crypto Basic that is currently displayed on your screen. Here are a few reasons why August 15th might be a sea change for XRP. I will thus share with you the opinions of two separate lawyers, one of whom is a member of the XRP community, and the other of whom is a former SEC lawyer and somewhat knowledgeable. Additionally, there has been a great deal of conjecture in the community on the true meaning of this. Some of it makes me roll my eyes, it's a little goofy, but I just want to sort of straighten it out so I can give you a brief update. Additionally, there is this narrative which will undoubtedly benefit XRP in particular. It's from Cointelegraph here. Crypto ETP in-kind creations and redemptions are authorized by the SEC. I'll tell you exactly what this implies. I do want to be clear though, before continuing, I have no financial experience. I'm not giving financial advice, and whatever I say or write should not lead you to buy or sell anything. I'm merely a hobbyist who likes to create YouTube videos about crypto-related subjects for enjoyment. Thus, this is a CoinGape headline. According to the lawyer, Ripple and the SEC may reject appeals in the XRP case before August 15th. Former SEC attorney Mark Fagel is hopeful that the XRP case will make progress as the August 15th status report date draws near. Fagel thinks the SEC and Ripple will probably withdraw their petitions before the deadline. I will now demonstrate for you what he said about this. First, I would want to mention that there were reportedly some talks that took place behind closed doors about the SEC and Ripple. Furthermore, there is no proof that that is the case. Just these claims exist, but I have serious doubts about what is being discussed in reality. This is most likely the case, as it has occurred so frequently that I've lost count, especially in the past few years. Therefore, the SEC will hold meetings virtually every week to discuss a variety of general subjects with no announcement of the specifics ever made. This is a Sunshine Act notice, though. Almost every week, one of these can be found on the SEC website. This is for July 31st, 2025, which is practically tomorrow. As I mentioned earlier, it happens almost every week, so there was another one a week ago. Additionally, the section that I underlined on the screen is what some members of the XRP community find most bothersome. Particularly up until the point where we were discussing a settlement for the SECV Ripple case. However, people see this kind of wording and assume it has anything to do with Ripple, even though it doesn't. Now and then, it will begin to go viral in the XRP community, and I will have to make a video explaining how foolish this is and how it isn't true. However, some of the terminology that excites individuals is shown here. This is how it reads. The following subjects will be the focus of the closed meeting: institution and resolution of administrative processes, establishment and resolution of injunctive actions, settlement of legal disputes, and additional issues about inspections and enforcement actions. That might be anything, as you could think, and people do, and they believe that to be the case. So I'm guessing that's what's being talked about here. This was written by Crypto Crows, a member of the XRP community. The SEC just convened its fourth meeting behind closed doors to discuss Ripple's appeal. The next breakout might be dramatic if they withdraw the appeal, but a delay could postpone the approval of XRP spot ETFs. I'm willing to listen if there's anything more being discussed here, except the Sunshine Act notice I mentioned. However, each time I have seen such a statement, it has invariably turned out to be the Sunshine Act notice. This is merely a well-informed estimate. Regarding this, I seriously doubt that XRP ETFs will be held up if we don't eventually achieve a settlement that works for us, because it has nothing to do with XRP's actual legal status. It concerns a business that is a component of the XRP ecosystem. It would be nearly impossible for anything related to Ripple to stop a spot XRP ETF. I simply don't believe there's a possibility that it will have a detrimental effect on what's going on there. The good news is that the next person you see is former SEC lawyer Mark Fagel. He is therefore well versed in everything. And he called this out directly. He added that they haven't discussed the appeal in 4 private sessions. And notice that he has been refuting such allegations for the past few years. Thus, particularly about the notices under the Sunshine Act. I'm going to assume that's what he believes they are. Here, Crypto Crows did respond in a very courteous manner. Thanks, Mark, he said. You're right. Although not all 4 meetings were specifically referred to as Ripple appeals, There is cause for concern. It is never normal for the SEC to have closed meetings before ETF determinations. All right, that isn't accurate, though these are rather standard. Furthermore, they don't have a Ripple label. I simply don't accept it unless he's talking about something else that I've never heard of. The SEC and Ripple appeals meetings, or something similar, are really interesting. Everywhere you look, headlines will appear. How I didn't hear about that is beyond me. This is just standard procedure. In response, however, lawyer Fagler stated that they will meet to discuss the possibility of dropping the appeal once. It hasn't happened yet, of course. Additionally, until they file paperwork, no one outside the SEC will be aware that they have approved dismissing the agenda because it is confidential. The rest of what people are saying is fiction. I have also had the experience. People act on everything that is said. I'm just being honest. Even if I adore our neighborhood, let's say that a lot of people have really large imaginations. And some people will begin to say things, and then they are spread as if they were true, as if they originated from. Too much of this stuff has been shown to me. Then another person questioned lawyer Fagler. Is there a deadline for the SEC to submit its report to the appellate court? He asks. Is that anything else, or is it August 15th? I think that's the date for the parties to report on the status of their appeals, Mark replied. Although there isn't a strict deadline for them to submit their dismissal documents, I anticipate that they will make an effort to do it before then. Therefore, he genuinely believes that everything will probably be resolved in the coming weeks. And that would be wonderful. This is the kind of news that, when it happens, I'm not predicting it well, but could lead to XRP markets going wild globally, even if XRP does have perfect legal certainty and the war on crypto is finished. Because even though the market is slightly retreating as I write this, we are still on a bull run. Nothing extraordinary, it's quite typical. This stuff occurs even before a bull run's most exuberant phase. Although I'm not worried about it, it might start operating nonetheless if you receive such news in the correct setting. I'll be keeping an eye out for that. Here's a message from XRP community lawyer Bill Morgan. We haven't yet dropped the appeal in the Ripple case before the SEC. The SEC has no time limit to revoke the appeal, but the deadline for the SEC to take action is August 15th, 2025, when it must report to the appeal court. Even so, it might simply request additional time. Within the following 2 weeks, we will hear anything regarding the situation. All right. He seemed to be thinking along the lines of lawyer Fagel, which is that something will happen sooner rather than later. However, we'll see exactly how that turns out. However, don't be shocked if everything is resolved much sooner rather than later. Okay. Then there is this tale. For cryptocurrency ETPs, the SEC authorizes in-kind creations and redemptions. In-kind creation and redemption for Bitcoin exchange-traded products have been authorized by the U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission. I should also mention that ETFs are a subset of ETPs. They are an ETP kind. It states that instead of using cash, authorized agents should be able to swap shares for the underlying crypto assets immediately. The securities regulators said in a statement on Tuesday that authorized Bitcoin and Ether funds will be allowed to issue and redeem shares in kind. In a statement, SEC Chairman Paul Atkins stated, "It's a new day at the SEC, and a key priority of my chairmanship is developing a fit-for-purpose regulatory framework for crypto asset markets." According to Atkins, the new regulations will increase the efficiency and lower the cost of crypto ETPs. According to Jamie Selway, director of the SEC's Division of Trading and Markets, in-kind creations and redemptions give ETP issuers, authorized participants, and investors flexibility and cost savings, which makes the market more efficient. Therefore, if this didn't occur, it would apply to spot ETFs, which will eventually be legalized, and XRP, of course. You could sell your spot XRP ETF if you chose to in the future without this, but you wouldn't be able to redeem XRP. You may make money by selling it. Therefore, you just couldn't have XRP if you wanted it. You can receive money that makes selling to the market more difficult. Following that, you simply need to go buy the XRP yourself with your money. However, there are alternative methods. This simply opens up. Furthermore, the former administration would never have allowed this to occur. Even though it's just one more item, people's lives will be made easier. That's one thing then. Additionally, fewer transactions will occur, which will ultimately lead to lower trading fees. Because they know they have more options when it comes to exiting, this is simply one more factor that will increase the likelihood that consumers will be really satisfied and eager to buy spot ETFs. Really awesome stuff. This is just another thing, and I'm glad to see it. I do not provide financial advice. Nothing I write or say should influence you to buy or sell anything. That is a really, really awful idea.